Welcome to the video installation series presented by Advanced Sport Touring. Today we'll be installing a set of pullback risers onto our Kawasaki Concours 14. The first thing you're going to want to do is take a towel and place it over your gas tank and the plastic areas to prevent damage. To install these risers, we're going to need to make a little bit of slack in the lines. To do that, we're going to be opening up a wire clip that holds our brake and clutch cables. This clip is found if you follow your cables from your handlebars straight down. There'll be this clip right here. To open this clip, you're going to want to have a screwdriver handy. You're going to want to place it in between the teeth so that it doesn't lock anymore. Then you're going to take your finger and pull up on the back side here. You'll lose your screwdriver, but it'll open. And you're going to want to do this for both sides. Once again, just follow your cables down and you'll see one on each side. I've gone ahead and done this because it's impossible to film. Our next step in the installation process is going to involve adjusting the angle of our brake line on the right hand handlebar. As you can see, it angles off to the outside of the bike. What we're going to try and do is get it to go more in a straight line. And to do this, we're going to be adjusting our banjo clamp. The banjo clamp is located on your right hand handlebar. It's going to be this black nut right here. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be loosening this just enough so that we can turn the line going more towards the middle of the bike. When you loosen this, it's going to pop suddenly and you might lose a little bit of fluid. That's normal, don't worry about it. So to do this, we're going to take our 12mm wrench. We have it open just a little bit, and we're going to turn it so that the line is going more towards the center of the bike. Then go ahead and tighten that back up. And when this is accomplished, the brake line is going to be slanted more towards the center and it's going to be bent more, so that'll accommodate the added lift in our handlebars. The last thing we're going to do to increase the length of our lines is to remove the bolts holding our brake junction blocks. There's one on each side. So we're going to go ahead and do that with our 10mm wrench. There we go. And now you can see it's moving freely. And there's our second bolt. And our other side is now hanging freely. Next, we're going to remove the bolt covers. You can do this by using a screwdriver or any other small flat object. Well, that one's gone. That's alright. Okay, now that we have all of our bolt covers off, we can go ahead and remove our bolts. For these bolts, we're going to use a 6mm Allen key, also called a hex key. And you're going to hear a little pop when you're loosening them. That's normal. I'm going to use a different tool called a speed tool. Get these out a little quicker. And hold on to these bolts because we're going to use them later. And then when you get to your last bolt, you're going to want to support the handlebar assembly with your hip, so that way it doesn't fall. And then we're going to go ahead and rest it on the bike. Try and prevent it from scratching up your bike while you're doing that. Go ahead and install the right hand side riser. You can tell this is the right side because it's flat on the left and it's got the scallop on the right. We're going to go ahead and place this into position. Just like that, line up your bolts. And then you're going to want to go ahead and grab a hold of a 30mm bolt included in the kit. Place it into your hole. Grab another 30mm bolt, put it in the hole. And then these will hold the riser into position. Included in your kit, you have a tube of Loctite. You're going to want to go ahead and break that open. Take a 50mm bolt included in the kit. Put some on the bottom quarter of the thread, just on one side, because when you turn it, it'll move the Loctite around through the threads. You're going to take that bolt, you're going to put it in your top hole here. You're going to take your 6mm Allen key, hex key, and tighten that one down into position. After you get your 50mm bolt tightened down, go ahead and remove one of the 30mm bolts. Put your Loctite on. Put it back in the hole. Tighten it up. And then do the same thing for your last 30mm bolt. The torque specs for these bolts are 16 to 18 foot-pounds. Now that you have the riser installed, we're going to be using some of that extra slack that you created in your lines. To do that, you're going to pull up on these wires gently, just enough to create slack. These should pull up pretty easily. Put your handlebar onto the riser, matching the holes. Take the bolts that you took out originally and put one of those in. Tighten it down. Not too snug because you're going to be taking it back out. Take another one of your one of your original bolts that you pulled out. Put your Loctite on it and repeat the step for both of these holes. And then pull out the first bolt that you put in, put some Loctite on it, and put it back in the hole. The recommended torque specs for these bolts are 16 to 18 foot-pounds. Our next step is going to be to address this brake junction block. Included in your kit, you receive 2 sets of spacers. You can decide whether you want to use the silver or the black. They both do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and use the black ones. take one of your 50mm bolts that was included in the kit, slide it through your brake junction, through the spacer, and then into the hole. Go ahead and tighten it up, finger tight. Get your 4mm hex key, Allen key. Tighten it up till it's just a little bit snug. And then make sure that the block isn't touching your risers. You may need to turn it just a little bit. And tighten it down. And the recommended torque spec for this is 8 foot-pounds. And you can see that because we adjusted our brake line, it has a very straight flow, and we still have some extra slack in the lines. The next step is we're going to put our caps on. If you use just the ones I included in the kit, they'll all match. Okay, and now our right side is complete. I'm going to go ahead and start on the left side. You don't have a banjo clamp that you have to adjust, so there's less steps involved. We want to go ahead and loosen our bolts. That one was really on there. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take out our bolts. And then remember to support your handlebar with your hip. Okay, and then gently pull up on your lines and set it down onto your bike. Take your riser, take your 30mm bolts, okay, take your 50mm bolt, put your Loctite on it, snug that down. Take your 30mm bolts out one at a time, put Loctite on it, then put them back in the hole. Recommended torque specs, 16 to 18 foot-pounds. Pull up on your lines just a little bit, get enough slack to get your riser into position. Take the bolts that you took out, put a couple of them in, okay. Go ahead and take your last bolt, put some Loctite on it, put it in. Take out your last two bolts, put Loctite on them. Recommended torque specs, 16 to 18 foot-pounds. take your spacer and your last 50mm bolt, put it through the hole of your brake junction. There we go. Tighten it up finger tight. Take your 4mm hex Allen key. Go ahead and get it slightly snug. Make sure the block isn't touching the riser. Tighten it up. Recommended torque specs, 8 foot-pounds. Take your last bolt caps. Put these on. At this point, you want to go ahead and move your handlebars left to right. Make sure that they move freely. Your risers aren't touching anything they shouldn't. Nothing's binding. You might want to pull up on your cables an extra time just to make sure. Start up your bike. Make sure it idles at the same speed it was idling before. And if everything appears to be normal, go ahead and take it out for a test ride. And that was our installation of pullback risers presented by Advanced Sport Touring.